How's it going, guys? The Springboks of 2025 are officially underway with a thumping win over the Barbarians. Should we be surprised by this absolute bloodbath? Probably not, even though it was a typically star-studded Barbars lineup with quite a few All Blacks in the mix. You just had the feeling they weren't going to have the cohesion to beat the world champions, back-to-back world champions at home, and so it proved to be the case. Now, this game was fascinating if you're a South African. Very experienced Springbok side if you look at the midfield and wingers. I mean, Damian de Allende, Jesse Creel, who was the captain, been there, done that, World Cup winners tick, and then you go to the back three. Fassi, who's starting to rack up the caps for the Bokke, and then you've got Kurtley Arendse, you got Cheslin Colby. I mean, these are gold standard A-list Springboks with tons of caps. The experimentation, which you often see against a Barbars team, well, that came more in the forward pack. And if you stick around till the end of this video, I'm actually going to tell you the standout Springbok player for me. And he was a newcomer, and he was a forward. I'm also going to give you one Barbarian player who stood out for me, not to say he was anything close to the man of the match, but someone who you got to keep your eye on as it pertains to future international action. But where do we start, guys? Look, this game was played in dreadful conditions. I love Cape Town, one of the most beautiful cities on earth, but it's a bit like Los Angeles or San Francisco in June. You've heard of that June gloom, right? Where the fog comes in, it's overcast, it's kind of bleak. Clearly a ton of dew underfoot. Josh Jacob, the young number 10, a Kiwi who plays for the Chiefs, he had a horror start to the game, knocking on the ball twice. You felt for the young fella who's been very good in Super Rugby, but as the match wore on, pretty much everyone was making handling errors. It wasn't just Jacob, and so, you realize the conditions were pretty treacherous out there when it came to ball handling. Made some of the Springboks' incisions with ball in hand even more impressive. What this game revealed clearly to me, to my New Zealand eyes, looking at this Springbok team from the outside, is they already know their blueprint to win. I'm going to explain exactly what it is, but I will tell you, it ain't rocket science. So from a New Zealand perspective, we were interested to see Lester Fainga'anuku in the midfield. He's been an All Black before. Might be an All Black again. A lot of people don't think Rieko Ioane is the long-term option at 13 for the All Blacks. So I was curious to see how he went. Shannon Frizell, typically a number 6 for the All Blacks in the past. He was playing at 8 today. Kiwis haven't had a good look at him in a while. So it was intriguing to see him front up against a pack as good as the Springboks. And then you had Radamai Tavuki-Neepkins playing on the wing. He's a Highlanders boy. Some people have beat the drums for him as an All Black. Didn't exactly advance his cause today. You also had Mark Talea on one wing. You had Sam Cane, All Black captain for many years out there. None of them covered themselves in glory. Spoiler alert, this was very much a processional of Springboks power. Once the Boks got into their rhythm in like minute 2, they were basically unstoppable, and the scoreline illustrates that. I mean, it only took 90 seconds for the Springboks to completely assert dominance. It helps when you have Oxenche and Malcolm Marx there in the front row. They just put in a devastating scrum, and like I was immediately thinking in minute 2, this is going to be a long day at the office. Wouldn't you know it, Malcolm Marx scored off a rolling maul. My notes were clinical, destructive. Now, admittedly, the Barbarians were not playing particularly well. They were making this look like a training run for the Bokke, and it was a very nervy start from number 10, Josh Jacob. He had those 2 knock-ons, as I mentioned, and if the Barbarians looked jittery and in over their heads, the Boks looked calm, composed, clinical, none more so than Fassi, playing at fullback, played, I believe, 12 times for the Sharks this year. He was deadly with his kicking game. We know he's got a good running game. Well, he was just beautiful as a kicking option, kicking off both feet, grubbers, short kicking game, setting up his outside wingers. This guy is money for South Africa. Incredibly athletic, but I feel like year on year, the kicking game has just gotten more sophisticated. So this guy is a multi-prong attacking weapon. I see a huge future for him in the dark green of the Springboks. And I think overall I was loving the balance of kick, run, pass that I saw from the Boks. If you look at Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu, who was getting the first bite at the number 10 jersey this year, he mixed his options well. Sometimes he was giving the ball air, moving wide, playing lateral. Other times he would just chip through, make a very direct incision. So I am loving that variety in the game of Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu. Let's also give him his flowers for one of the best dummies in World Rugby. He does a 360-degree dummy. He whoop, 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 and then spins all the way around. He totally made a fool out of Peter Amani, who, you know, apparently this is his last game. I feel like I've been hearing that for years. With all due respect to this legend of Irish rugby, like, is it your last game or not, champ? I am sick of hearing that you're retiring. Like, do it or don't. I wouldn't put any money on it being his last game. Again, with all due respect, legendary player, great Irishman, but like, come on, guys. It seems like he's having his last game every single year. So after Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu ripped out that amazing dummy, the ball spurted out of his hand. So like I said, you can't just single out Josh Jacob for some really awful handling early on. A lot of the players, including the Springboks, couldn't control the pill. Very greasy ball. Undermined the spectacle of this game, that's for sure. But we started to see the blueprint for the Springboks winning. Basically, moving it through the backs, winning that battle of the midfield line, getting into positive territory, and they were able to make real incisions with their backline play. Once the backs advance the ball into the 22, they stay out of it. The forwards roll up their sleeves, they pick and go, they use brute force. That is how the Boks are going to win this year. They have the backline talent, the fluency to just rip teams open somewhere around that 50-meter line. But once they get to the kill zone, the big boys take over. And I salute you. It's a simple game plan once you get into that end zone, but why deviate from it? I mean, we just saw it today. It was so effective. And I look at Vincent Tshituka, who was the number 7 fresh face for the Springboks. He just easily bowled over for a try, and I actually made a note. I said, oh wow, one of the locks scored, and then I went, oh no, this guy's a number 7. I mean, this guy has so much beef. He is a monstrous number 7. We are not pumping out loose forwards of this size in New Zealand. It was quite chilling to see, as a matter of fact. Now look, the Barbarians did wake up to a certain extent. It felt like it took 20 minutes for them to start to get the feel of each other. Their scrum started to push back after being demolished early on, and I will say it wasn't all smooth sailing for the Springboks. Yes, I've mentioned the greasy conditions, but a lot of unforced errors from the Boks in that second quarter. The backline play, it would just break down at times, maybe a little forward pass. You even saw kicking out on the full. Just a couple of elementary errors that I think they will tidy up. We've got to remember, this is their first hit out of the year, so a little bit of rust is understandable, but certainly not flawless stuff from the men in green, particularly in that second quarter. Now, I'm keeping my eye on the Kiwis and the Barbarians this whole time. Sam Cane did not really have a good game. He couldn't assert himself, but that's okay. He is retired as an All Black, so that was of less interest to me. You know, I felt that Shannon Frizell looked okay. And that's about all I can tell you. I mean, I'm starting to wonder if maybe this could be a situation where New Zealand's going to produce another number 6 or 2, or Wallace Satiti makes that jersey his own, and Shannon Frizell does become a forgotten man. At one point, we thought we couldn't live without him. You didn't watch this game and think, oh my God, we need him back in the All Blacks. You're kind of thinking, well, maybe Samipeni Finau and Wallace Satiti, when he's recovered, can lock that spot down. I will say that Jacob Tavuki-Neepkins looked very slight out there on the wing. He had some good breaks, but man, the size of the Springboks backs, wingers aside, just kind of swallowed him up. And look, here's the thing. I mean, the Springboks have very small wingers, but they play big. Radamai Tavuki-Neepkins just felt like he was maybe missing some muscularity. It makes you realize why a guy like Caleb Clark has been picked ahead of him in the All Blacks this year. Now, Quagga Smith came on just before halftime, which didn't bode well at all. And shortly after the break, you actually had Labok taking over the reins at 10. And look, it was just more of the same in the second half, guys. In the 45th minute, there was another incision from Fassi and Arendse. That led to a try. In the 53rd minute, there was a yellow card against the Barbarians for a head-on-head, so I was like, great, just what they need, another man down. In the 57th minute, a brilliant Damian de Allende kick just absolutely splintered the field wide open, and you had Arendse swoop on it. And we just moved down the line, you know, brilliant kicks, brilliant kick chase, good finishing, and then muscular forward power driving the box over the line, try after try. In the 69th minute, Vincent Tshituka simply picked up the ball and bustled his way over close to the line. The guy was seemingly unstoppable today when he got close, but the Boks did put a cherry on top. Damian de Allende scored at the end to hit 50. Mani Lebok converted it. There was a try in there from the Barbarians, but pretty perfunctory. I mean, just the classic token try. It was set up by Leicester Fainga'anuku, though, who had a nice touch in midfield, so I'm going to give more of the shout out to his try assist than the try scorer. Jaminet was able to get the ball down after Aronsa slipped off a tackle, so look, at least they got on the board, I suppose you could say. And look, the Springboks haven't beaten the Barbarians since 2000, I heard, which is kind of shocking to me, but they've certainly made up for lost time with an absolute pounding today. If you're Rassi Erasmus, you have to be really happy with this. You know, I'd be happier with the 7 points conceded, probably more than the 54 points that they racked up on attack. That is a good defensive effort. I think that Rassi would be happy with the basics that were done here. The ability to play territory, the ability to squeeze the opposition in the kill zone. I mean, once they got into the 22, the Springboks forwards looked absolutely lethal. The set piece was good. I saw the Springboks picking off opposition throws. That's always good. You know, if these guys can just win ball, their own ball at the usual rate, they're hard to beat. You start picking off opposition throws and the Springboks start to become, you know, virtually impossible to beat. The more possession that they can get their hands on, the better. This is an ominous-looking team. I mean, I actually think the Springboks of 2025 are going to be better than the Springboks of 2024. Let's not forget they won the Rugby Championship last year. Let's not also forget that they pretty much swept through the UK and Europe without breaking a sweat. So as a New Zealander, I'm a little bit nervous, and they're bringing through some depth. So I'm going to call out the player that really, to my mind, stood out the most. I've already mentioned him twice. Vincent Tshituka plays for the Sharks. Just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So much size, so much skill, ominous performance. Do not be surprised if he is racking up caps for the Springboks at an alarming rate in the future. I think the transition plan is really underway with the South African loose forwards. Now, did any Barbarian really stand out? I'm afraid to say no. It was a pretty limp effort, but I am going to mention Leicester Fainga'anuku. Of all of the potential All Blacks on display, I felt he went the best. He did have a nice try assist, got the ball away under a lot of pressure in midfield to set up the one Barbars try. But more than that, I felt he was a muscular presence at the breakdown. Still a scrappy game from him, but I feel if you surrounded him with All Black caliber players, he could shine again in the way he did in the past. But overall, guys, you know, no more praise for the Barbarians. This one belonged to the Springboks. They're looking good. Essentially a warm-up fixture. Well, I would say that they are running hot already. So I'll be back to take a look at their games against Georgia and Italy. And of course, I'll be talking about the All Blacks versus France next week. Very excited for that one. I'll be streaming from Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm finishing shooting a film. But guys, send this video to someone who loves rugby. Drop a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you for another one real soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.